In David Cronenberg's 1979 classic, The Brood, a woman, Nola Carveth, played by Samantha Eggar, undergoes experimental therapy. Psychoplasmics, it's called, causing her repressed emotions, stemming from years of abuse, to manifest as malignant homunculi. These childlike goblins germinate parthenogenically from their mother's abdomen and unleash her buried rage, bludgeoning to death the unsuspecting targets of her resentments. The film is a masterpiece in Cronenberg's oeuvre, a trademark blending of psychological and body horrors, paralleling the biological materialization of its character's emotional virulence. This brings us to the topic of this essay. Titular character in the 1994 dark comedy film Clifford is a young boy locked in a high-stakes struggle against his exasperated Uncle Martin, portrayed by the legendary Charles Grodin in a tour de force at the pinnacle of his craft. The young boy, Clifford, is the physical manifestation of Martin's repressed childhood optimism and exuberance that has long festered and that now invades his present to sabotage his dismal, dead-end life. Even now I can hear your flummoxed gasps and dismissive chuckles. Do not misunderstand me. I am in no sense claiming that the boy Clifford literally erupted out of a fleshy pod on Charles Grodin's torso, as was the case in The Brood. If someone had suggested that to me, I too would titter derisively. But no, this film is not a Cronenbergian sci-fi horror. It is but low fantasy. The infant Clifford, through means as of yet unexplained, has merely become the receptacle for Martin's battered and squelched feelings. The first hint of this spiritual connection is in the names. Repeatedly we are told that the only time Martin has ever met Clifford, prior to the film's events, was at the baby's christening, emphasizing the thematic importance of names and naming. Martin has trouble remembering his nephew's name.
I want to say Mason.
Mason, a stoneworker, a builder, where Martin himself is an architect. Mason, a corrupted pronunciation of my son. But the child's name is actually Clifford, or Cliff. A literal cliff is already a symbol of Martin's self-sabotage early on in the film. He purchases a house located on a cliffside, and his future fiancée, Sarah Davis, sees it as confirmation that he does not want children as she does, imperiling their planned marriage. And finally, Martin's name is Martin, just as Clifford is portrayed by an actor named Martin Short. Martin the Short. The shorter version of Martin, you see. Clifford, the uncanny child, is so obviously unnatural that he can only be portrayed by an adult man. His facial expressions are unsettling, counterfeit, for they are expressions of an adult's subconscious. Further, Martin's face and its contortions are themselves equally eerie and supranormal, mirroring Clifford's. Their inhuman, disquieting countenances link them together and to the body horror we see in David Cronenberg's The Brood, and The Fly, and Videodrome, etc.
Can you just act like a human boy for 1 minute here? Look at me like a person. You can't do it for more than a few seconds. Look at me like a human boy. Don't mess around with me.
Martin has two dreams: to design a mass transit system for the city of Los Angeles, and to marry Sarah Davis. The first dream is merely to perform his dry, uncreative job at the behest of his boss, Ellis. The second dream is to marry a woman with priorities antithetical to his own and whose family loathes him. There is no evidence of love or chemistry between these two. Both of Martin's dreams amount to his resigning himself to be a simple cog in a depressive adult society. This was not always the case, however. Martin speaks of a time when his only dream, like Clifford's, was to visit a children's amusement park, Riverview. It was the only place a boy like him could be happy. But his father never took him, and the amusement park was destroyed. Clifford's sole aspiration is to visit Dinosaur World and its star attraction, Larry the Scary Rex. By no coincidence, it was Martin who designed these emblems of boyhood yearning. Dinosaur World represents a time in Martin's life when his passion for architecture could be used for frolic and gaiety and joy, not as now where his craft, corrupted, is aimed towards efficiently shuttling other drones to their joyless jobs. The two, the man and the boy, share a moment reveling in the song of Larry the Scary Rex, and Martin lets slip the dreams he has hidden away. Yes, Martin and Clifford are bonded over dinosaurs. Martin designed Dinosaur World to indulge his inner child, his uninhibited homunculus, Clifford. And Larry the Scary Rex is another facsimile of Martin's conflicted desires. Larry is scary. His teeth are sharp. He has a mighty, mighty roar. But all of this is a facade. He actually loves kids underneath it all. He is dispossessed of joy by the expectations attached to being a mighty dinosaur, just as Martin is deprived of joy by the adult world. It is telling that on the Larry the Scary Rex ride, Clifford is instructed to assassinate Larry with a laser gun, just as Clifford, the malignant homunculus, is there to destroy Martin's bleak adult pretenses. But as Martin's simulacrum, Clifford also must have a dinosaur alter ego, his toy brontosaur, Steffen. As Clifford seeks to undermine Martin's designs through subterfuge and scheming, Steffen acts as his mouthpiece, an unapologetic truth-teller calling out the hypocrisies of the adult world. The harder Martin suppresses Clifford and his boyhood dreams, the harsher Clifford responds, sabotaging Martin's misguided adult aspirations. After Martin breaks his original promise of taking Clifford to Dinosaur World to go instead to a dinner party, Clifford humiliates him in front of his future in-laws. When Martin imprisons Clifford away in the bedroom, Clifford explodes his transit designs during his important presentation, resulting in his firing. In each case, Martin is apoplectic, not recognizing how the sabotage is to his ultimate benefit. His in-laws, you see, already despise him. His overtures to them are futile. His planned marriage certainly doomed. His boss is exploiting him, the job sapping his energies. Martin is still in denial, though, still at odds with his innermost desires, so he retaliates against Clifford again, annihilating his love of Dinosaur World and Larry the Scary Rex by turning them both into weapons. Clifford is neutralized, shunted into a life of self-deprivation, of abnegation, the life of a priest, where all dreams are dead. The one lingering question is what precipitated this prosopopoeia of the passions. Whence emerged this accursed puppet? Well, in the brood, Nola's volatile psyche is a scar from abuse at the hands of her alcoholic mother and its enabling by her neglectful father. She is an ideal candidate for psychoplasmics, her emotions primed for physical transubstantiation. There are faint but unmistakable hints here that Martin comes from an abusive and broken home. As previously mentioned, as a boy, Martin wanted nothing more than to visit a wondrous amusement park, but he was denied this simple pleasure by his father until the day the park was demolished. Martin and his brother Julian are estranged. They haven't spoken in years, perhaps even since Clifford's christening. They want nothing to do with each other, avoiding the reminders of their childhood. Both brothers show an aversion to children, as evidenced by Martin buying a house unsuitable for children, and by Julian's outright hatred for his son. Clifford, Martin's youthful double, depicts himself as a missing child on a milk carton, and later concocts stories of assailants tying him up and touching his no special place. An obvious fabrication, to be sure, but an unintentionally revelatory one. Martin relives such traumas when he is strip-searched and humiliated, naked in the jail. Much as Clifford's torture upon the Larry the Scary Rex ride corrupts his dream and disabuses him of his joy, the harrowing torment of Martin's formative years has forced his psyche to disassociate from his childhood, including its hopes and dreams and simple joys. All of it is buried in resentment and has been discarded, congealing into a fleshy abomination. Clifford, destined to re-emerge into Martin's life for a reckoning. In conclusion, I call your attention to the ending of Clifford. Sarah Davis has left Martin because he has been behaving increasingly erratically, jealously, and abusively towards Clifford. From her perspective, the last things he does is bind Clifford in a blockaded bedroom, and then kidnap the young boy in the middle of the night. Martin has lost his so-called dream job after his disastrous presentation. His life is in shambles. After vanquishing Clifford and subjugating his will, Martin uneventfully reconciles with Sarah and presumably recovers his architectural aspirations. The film does not divulge any details about either goal, even though these are supposedly his two sole dreams. There is no concern. The details are not important, as these are not real dreams and the obstacles are artificial. Fulfillment of these dreams is the inevitable consequence of the inertia of his dreary life. With the failure of Clifford and the optimism he represents, Martin's fate is sealed. Just as The Brood ends with Nola's traumatized daughter exhibiting the telltale signs of a psychoplasmic eruption, Clifford likewise ends with a curse being passed on to the next generation, with an elderly Clifford, a stodgy priest now, dulling the exuberance of a young boy child much like himself.